Keely, Eduardo, it's a pleasure to have you here in Logística.la. Welcome.
Thank you, Jorge, and thanks, Keely, for being with us. We have a couple questions for you on this interview. The first one is we know that your session in the upcoming Ohio State program in Bogotá is titled Designing and Managing a Resilient Supply Chain. So how do you think this is relevant to our reality here in Colombia or in Latin America?
I'd say there's two parts to answering that question. The first is thinking about why designing the supply chain is important. And when I say designing the supply chain, I'm thinking about the physical locations of the facilities in the supply chain, as well as the transportation channels that you use to deliver product through that supply chain. So really, how do you design the physical flow of the product from source to customer? And why that's important is that roughly 80% of logistics costs are determined by that network. So while logistics professionals spend a lot of time finding ways to reduce logistics costs, if you don't let yourself play around with that network design, then you're really missing out on an opportunity to affect a large chunk of your costs. As a rough estimate, companies that engage in network design projects typically see reductions in their logistics costs of 10 to 15%. So network design can be a real cost driver to a logistics system. Also, from what I understand, the Colombian government is investing a lot in your transportation infrastructure with the goal of reducing transportation costs, I believe, by 20%. So as that happens, it provides a good time for managers to think about the design of their supply chain, because the cost trade-offs change. The network that looked good 5 years ago might not look as good 5 years from now as the transportation costs and the travel times are reduced. I also understand your economy is growing at a pretty good pace, so that brings about changes to demand, possibly new business opportunities throughout the supply chain. So again, it's not a static problem. It's something you've got to stay up on top of and redesign as the environment changes. So that's the first part of my answer, why you should be concerned with designing your supply chain. The second part addresses that word resilient and why managers need to think about developing a resilient supply chain. Everywhere in the world, the business environment is becoming more turbulent in the face of everything from earthquakes to political unrest to fluctuations in oil prices and currencies. Managers need to develop supply chains that can withstand disruptions. And many companies have focused on designing a lean supply chain, but that's made their supply chains more brittle in the face of disruptions. So again, it's a trade-off. Do we want to design the low-cost supply chain, or do we want to build in flexibility? And there's no easy answer to that question, but managers need to consider it as they think about the design of their supply chain. So hopefully that addresses why it's relevant, I think, to managers in most organizations, at least that have product flow through a supply chain, whether it's domestic or global.
Thanks, Keely, for that answer. And we have another question for you. What do you think are the 2 or 3 main reasons why supply chain professionals in Colombia should attend this seminar?
Well, hopefully in answering the first question, I addressed why it should be an interesting topic for a supply chain professional, particularly with the changes in the business environment taking place in Colombia. But particular to this seminar, I plan on keeping it lively and engaging with a mix of lectures, case studies, group exercises, even a hands-on computer lab. So folks should expect to come ready to talk and share their experiences, and I think that'll create a fun environment. I'm also not going to focus just on concepts, but teach participants some tools for addressing supply chain design problems. We'll start with some basic tools that work well in some situations or as a first step in the analysis, and then we'll look at more advanced solutions, including using supply chain design software. So hopefully participants walk away with not only an understanding and appreciation for the issues of designing a resilient supply chain, but also some tools to actually do it.
Thank you very much, Keely, for joining us and for sharing all your ideas with all Latin America through the Logística.la channels. We are all looking forward to meet you there in Bogotá, Colombia.
Thank you.